So first thing we're going to talk about is the difference between carving and sculpting, okay? Carving, it means we're going to take material out, while sculpting means we're going to add material on, and we're going to shape it the way we want it to, okay? So first thing we're going to do is a real simple flower. Anything that's rounded in the vegetable world can be turned into a flower really, really easily. The best thing to do is you're just going to come through here and just like this, okay? And now I'm making nice angled cuts, okay? We're just going to do about 3 of them. Try to keep them pretty close together, keep them nice and spaced out. Then we just twist, pop, it's going to come right off, just like this, okay? Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to reach in here and grab my handy dandy little melon baller, and I'm just going to shave out some of this area here in the middle so I get a little bit of a cup, just like a flower, yeah? Like a tulip. Okay. Now you don't have to, you don't necessarily have to do this, but it just gives you a little bit of a better look, especially with these bigger squash. You're just going to get a better overall look here. Now here's a nifty thing we can do. Take ourselves a nice green onion, okay, skewer, and like that, very pretty. I'm just going to go right through this green onion, just like that. Some flour on. Now what I like to do is give myself a little bit through the tip of this, right? And then you always have these weird things on flour, on green onions, right? Like these guys. Well, that's going to make us a nice little stamen on our flour, okay? Ta-da! The flour. Very nice, yeah. And you can do a bunch of these different ones. You do them like carrots and squash and zucchini, and you put them all together on, stab them into a melon or into a piece of green foam, whatever is going to work best for you and whatever you're doing a buffet. If you're doing like a really big one, of course you're going to need styrofoam. Melon's just not going to hold that kind of thing. And then we can add things like rosemary and parsley and other kinds of stuff to it. It's going to look like the greenery that you typically get with a flower display, right? Okay, so that's a very easy flower, okay? This next one's going to be a little bit more complex. Chris, you gave me back my bird's beak, didn't you? Good job. Okay, so now you can do this with paring knife or bird's beak, whatever's going to work best for you. This is going to be a radish rose. Now this is a little bit more complicated. Now what you want to do is you want to find the rounder ones. They work better, so I got a nice round one here, but you don't want them to be too small, okay? Because this one we're going to be able to get a radish rose out of it, but only a little tiny one. It's not going to look quite as beautiful. This one's a little bit better, okay? It's nice and round. We got a decent size out of them. These are okay too, okay? They're getting a little long when you're getting to this stage too, but you can get a nice pretty flower out of your bigger radishes, okay? So I'd rather have nice round ones than the long ones. Now, what I'm going to do first off is I'm going to take off 4 edges, okay? I'm just going to come through like this, and I'm just going to round off my cut, okay? 1, 2, 3, and 4, okay? So now I've got a shape that looks similar to this, yeah? Just like that. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come right through these petals right here, just bring them out. And you see how close I'm getting with this knife? You can really see the knife through the radish, okay? Now I don't want to come all the way down, I want to come to about right here, okay? Once you get to down there, I'm just going to pull the knife out and I've got my first petal. Second petal is just going to come right here on this one. Same way, yeah? I'm just going to come right down to her. Myself a nice petal. Now don't pull them out too much. These things are very fragile and you'll break them really quickly. So just don't put too much strain on them. And there's another one. And one more is going to be the charm. It's getting a little close. Okay, so now I've got 4 petals, yeah? This one's getting a little crooked on me, but that's okay. If it's a little crooked, it's not going to be a big deal. Flowers aren't really straight. Okay, if you ever go and look at a rose, no rose is perfect. You need a little bit of what the Japanese like to call wabi-sabi, okay? That's a little beauty and chaos. Okay, and you see how next step I'm doing is I'm just cutting off these corners in between these petals. Okay, I'm just taking that red right out, okay? Not a big deal. Now be careful not to cut too much into your other petals, or else you end up with a really notched up looking flower. Looks like the bees have been at it or something. Okay, the next cut's just going to come right under there. Just like that, okay? Second verse, same as the first, yeah? And notice I'm not cutting all the way down on that. I'm just cutting far enough to let it fold out just a little bit. And this doesn't sound weird, but it's actually better if you have a little bit of a duller knife. You know, when you're carving, you don't want a really, really, really sharp knife, as that has a tendency to just cut right through things, which is what we want to avoid doing. Okay, we want to make sure our cuts are precise. So you kind of want almost like not dull, but not exactly razor sharp. Okay, so now we've gotten to this stage. Now, the next petals are going to come right behind my original petals, but you can see where they've gotten a little small. These guys don't quite match up these guys. That's easy to fix. We're just going to come through here and we're just going to take out a little bit more of this material to even up the petal sizes. Okay, don't cut off too much of that red though, because you're going to want that red for your petals. And again, I'm just going to come right behind here and I'm just going to make my petal. Okay, another one right here. Cut that one a little bit too much. That's okay. Just pull that out and do it again. And guys, don't get frustrated with these things, guys. You want to not let the produce win, okay? I know that sounds really funny, but it's true. I'm going to go ahead and pull that out because I want to get a little bit of a wider petal here. And a little bit of material coming out is not a bad thing. It's going to let our petals open up a little bit more. You get a little bit more white space in between your red ones. It gives it a little bit more of that look, okay? I'm going to shade this one down just a touch too. Take a little bit of that red out of there. Make this their petal. Now, you got to remember that yes, you could go down here all the way. You could just keep going and going and going as long as you had the ability to actually carve these. But you got to remember that you're going to have to make, you know, a dozen, 2 dozen, 5 dozen of these things. And if we're going to be making that many of them, okay, sitting there and trying carving them all the way through is a waste of your time. Okay, you're going to drive yourself crazy, and what's going to end up doing happening is they're going to put this out on the buffet, and the guy and the gal are going to walk by and they're going to go, "Oh my God, radish roses, that's amazing, shrimp," and that's how it goes. Okay, this is just a decorative piece to the buffet. Yes, it's extremely important, but is it more important than the food? Absolutely not. Okay, so the hors d'oeuvres have to be good too, or your roast, or whatever it is you're putting out on this buffet. This is just for presentation. So I'm going to show you a little trick to kind of fudge the rest of this, and people don't, if you just, like I said, if there's several dozen together, people don't notice these little fudge tricks. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make kind of like a tic-tac-toe board. I'm just going to come in and make kind of a V-cut, pull this stuff out, okay? And I'll do 3 one direction, and then I'll do 3 the other direction. And I always start in the middle for some reason. Well, it doesn't really matter where you start as long as you get the pattern kind of the same. And I definitely like using the bird's beak better for this particular operation, just because of the roundness of the radish and the roundness of the bird's beak just kind of seem to go together. Or beaker knife or tournay, whatever you want to call this knife. I've worked with so many different chefs from so many different parts of the world that they all have different names for the same knife, which is really fun. Now, one of the things you want to do with this is we're going to stick it in a little bit of ice water overnight, okay? And these petals will really bloom out when you do that. Now I'm going to force them out just a little bit. I'd highly recommend that you don't try to do this because number one, it's time consuming, and number two, you got a really good chance of breaking your petals, and you don't want to do that because if you break them, then you got to do a whole new flower. That'll drive you nuts. So there's a nice little rose right there. Okay. Now, thank you. So now what we can do is, again, we can stem them up like we did our other flower. And with the roses, what's really fun to do, and I really do this with almost any flowers, is we're going to sit them in that ice water, like I said. Put a little bit of rose water or like some orange blossom water into that water with it, and it'll have the smell of flowers by tomorrow. That way it doesn't smell like a stinky old radish. Nobody wants that. So